Hey everyone, welcome to today's video where I'm going to be going over the top 5 tech choices for the current format. Effectively, I made this list by looking at what I think is going to be the most represented deck at the upcoming YCS. I think when we look at the data and the trends, and if you look at and watch my latest video, you'll see that there's been a huge resurgence of Sprite being played, and Kashtira is still going to be very popular as well. So I expect those two to be the most popular decks of the upcoming format, or as it stands right now. So as the format changes, these tech cards may change as well, but I think that, you know, since a lot of people asked in the latest video for this video, I figured I show it to you all. Okay, so for me, the fifth slot, and these are in no particular order in terms of how good they are. I think these are just like if I had to pick 5 off the top of my head, these would be it. I would say the fifth one would be Nibiru, and here's my reasoning on why I think it's going to be potentially good again. Okay, and the reason why I say potentially is because I think for most players, when they go a Rise Art Pass, it's like the safest thing that you can do, right? It's the conservative approach, but I do feel like as a result, people have been taking Nibirus out of their decks, but I do think that Kashtira's players will adapt to that, meaning that they will decide to overcommit a little bit more as a result of Nibiru being out of the format, which makes Nibiru good again in a weird way, right? So, but it also just has like good coverage across like other rogue options as well, such as Sword Soul, Pamornsut. You know, it has like applications into the math mech if they overextend trying to kill you. Like, there are, I think, applications of Nibiru in other matchups as well that can kind of make it pretty decent. Even like, for example, the 1-card Sprite combo, right? Like, starter by itself actually can lose to Nibiru if they do the Newman Toad Lock. So, and if you're not familiar with how that combo works, you can watch my latest locals video on which I took a YCS winning list from Peru to locals, and effectively I did that combo. And if my opponent had Nib at any of those points, it would be very bad for me unless I hard open red or blue or starter, or any two combinations of those two, right? But he played a lot of non-engine slots, so it can be, you're going to be opening more like 1-card / 1/2 card starters majority of the time. But the point is, I think Nibiru actually is potentially good again. I think it has application, and if people expect it to be out of the format, then it's the perfect time to put it in, right? To like kind of 5-head the meta. For the 4th slot, I think if we talk about trends in the metagame, we see that Sprite and Kashtira are looking to be, as of right now, the most popular decks at the upcoming YCS. The reason why I say that is because a lot more people, especially on a regional level, have been taking Sprites, and they've been dominating the scene. They've been doing very well. And Kashtira has been, you know, steadily consistent. It's just the pick, you know, from a representation perspective, it's always going to be there, right? What does that mean? Well, for me, I think cards like Dark Hole Raigeki and Kaiju Slumber are going to be good again. I think like those cards, if you haven't already played them, and I actually believe I played these cards at YCS Vegas myself in my Runic Naturia deck. I think those cards are good. I think those type of breakers that blow up your opponent's boards is nice, because against the Sprite deck, they don't have Elf anymore. So if you can like nuke their board, it's very hard for them to come back from their resources. And I think these same cards have coverage into matchups like Sword Soul as well, right? Like if you bait the Baron Negate, you nuke the entire Sword Soul board, effectively turning off their blackout as well. It's just like overall like very, very good. And I think like those type of board wipes can be kind of insane. And I think like if people don't summon, like let's say Carrot like earlier, then they lose to those type of cards. And I just think like overall like just wiping your opponent's board is just like very strong this format. So at least into those decks. And against like the Kashtira players, they have to like pretty much open Lance, right? But you have more copies of breakers than they do their Lance. I still think you're like more favored at the end of the day. It's all a numbers game, right? So I think those cards are solid. Now for my 3rd pick, I would say Lancia is now really, really good as well. Okay, so the reason why I think Lancia is also really good is because again, against the Kashtira deck, if you activate Lancia in their draw phase, it's very, very hard for them to get to a Rise Art. It's no easy task. The main reason is because if, let's say, they can't use their prosperities, so they lose a lot of consistency there. Unicorn by itself no longer gets you access to a Rise Art. And you can't, or yeah, to the big exceeds, and you can't use Rise Hearts effect, and so getting that extra level 7 is very difficult because you also cannot use Kashtira Scareclaw as well as Kashtira Tearlament if you use your Lancia in draw phase. And Lancia, for any deck right now, if you go first, a lot of people are siding evenly match. So being able to use Lancia to stop there evenly, it can be like pretty good as well. So I would just say, like, overall, Lancia seems like a really good card. It seems like a pretty good tech option into the meta game for Kashtira at least. And if you're playing a hand trap centric deck, then maybe adding Lancia to your arsenal could be kind of good. Next thing that I think about is going to be Kaijus and the goo itself, Santa Claus. So you might be wondering, like, Pack, why would you ever recommend Santa Claus? It's like a worse kaiju. Well, there's a couple applications of Santa Claus that makes it slightly better than kaijus. Well, kaijus, if you've noticed, are level 7s and higher, and as a result, you need to tribute 2 monsters to summon them. And I know that sounds like really basic, but for those of you who may forget that sometimes, like, you know, kaijus requires 2 monsters to tribute summon. Like, Pack, like, why does tribute summoning matter? Well, if you get like Ibli Lock or something like that, like, being able to tribute over it for Santa Claus, which is a level 6 monster, is pretty good. If the Sprite player if someone decides to play Sprite and copy the list from Weiss's Peru, the winning list, and they Newman lock you in draw standby phase with double cross, which is, you know, correct to play around Lava Golem, Kaijus, etc. Well, Santa Claus is actually less than 1800 attack. It's only 1200 attack, so you can actually summon Santa Claus under the Newman lock, which is very strong. You can tribute their Toad, and they have no way to bring it back because, you know, they've already used their double cross to bring back Newman. You can Santa Claus their Newman if you, like, your deck cannot beat the Newman. So it's just like a very, very good out to that, and it effectively works as a kaiju. And, you know, it's 1200 attack, 2500 defense, and it's a pretty easy card out. I know, like, the end phase effect is that your opponent gets a free draw, but hey, look, I'll be honest. I think if I can kaiju my opponent, I'm able to play. I don't think that really matters, to be quite frank. So I do think kaijus are very good right now. I think that if your opponent decides to respect Nibiru, then they play into the kaiju, and you can't really respond to a kaiju. Like, you know, you can't judgment. Like, you can judgment Dark Hole, you can judgment Raigeki, you can Ash Kaiju Slumber, you can Lance, you know, these cards as well. But the one thing you can't do is you can't stop the kaiju. Like, you just can't stop the kaiju unless you have Master Restrict or like a Fog King, you know. Like, there are ways. I know some people in the comments are probably gonna be like, but Pack, there are all these cards you can play to outplay the kaiju. But, like, let's be real. No one's playing Master Restrict going first. If you are, then you got me. Maybe Fog King, I guess, is something I've seen people try to do. Plays around Nib, plays around Kaiju. So maybe if someone is on, like, that tech, then maybe that's kind of good. And then for the number 1 slot, the last tech choice that I think is absolutely insane right now, that I haven't actually been seeing in many deck lists when I was looking at the metagame, is Dark Ruler No More. I think this card is actually has the place again. I think Sprite is popular. One of the things that killed it when it was at full power with Elf, Double Toad, Triple Toad, sometimes with Double Cross, was Dark Ruler No More. And it also has, like, you know, decent, like, I know, like, these are cards that are good into the decks I'm talking about right now, like the top couple, like, 3, 4, 5 decks, but I think Dark Ruler No More just works against other decks as well. Like, I think it can be good into the Sword Soul deck. You can Dark Ruler No More, like, your opponent's Nat Beast. They can't respond to it. With Nat Beast at least. You can Dark Ruler No More, you know, like the Kashtira player. You know, if they go a Rise or Pass, like, it's basically like a Dark Hole Raigeki kind of. It doesn't clear their monster, but at least it negates it. So you don't lose to the Dryad, and it still trades 1 for 1. All you have to do now, and you're not under Macrocosmos, right? So I think, like, Dark Ruler No More is in the number 1 slot for me. Like I said, they're not in any particular order, but these are, like, the order in which, like, you know, I just, like, came to mind when I was, like, writing the list down. So and Dark Lord No More was like the first card that immediately popped up in my head when I was like, thinking and sitting down, for the past couple of weeks, quite honestly, as I look at the metagame. So let me know in the comment section below if you agree with these 5 tech choices. And let me know what you think or what your tech choices are. I'm kind of curious to see if anyone has anything spicy that I'm potentially missing myself. But I do think like Santa Claus is a really good one. I think Dark Lord No More is solid. The Lancia is also really, really good. You have your Dark Hole, Raigeki, the Kaiju Slumbers. They're all in like the same category, I would say. So that's why I put them together. Like just like blowouts is just like nukes your opponent's monsters. And I think Nibiru is a sleeper. I think like if people don't expect it, it's broken. But if people expect it, it's bad. So I think come to that conclusion. Like, do you think people will respect Nib, or do you think people will not respect Nib? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. So guys, if you enjoy these type of content, if you're liking this video so far, then please go like, go subscribe. It would support the channel greatly. And last favor, let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much. Peace.